Kevin Powell is a physiotherapist with a true passion for helping others understand their bodies and reclaim their well-being. Kevin's journey began with dreams of playing football professionally, but his own health struggles and his passion for getting to the root cause of things led him to physiotherapy. Today, he works with clients of all ages and walks of life, but especially women who often struggle to feel connected with their bodies after giving birth. In this episode, we dive into Kevin's approach to treating the body as an interconnected system, the importance of small lifestyle shifts, and why true healing starts with understanding ourselves better. So if you ever felt disconnected from your own health or wondered how small changes can create lasting impact, tune in to hear Kevin's advice and why he believes everyone has the power to build a better relationship with their body.
It's being open-minded and viewing the body holistically. And we say holistically a lot, but what does it mean? Is having a checklist of a way of looking at the body and going, right, that head should be sitting in that position, but it's not. It's sitting more to the right. What does that mean for their gut? What does that mean for their knee? What does it mean for their spine? And it's going through a checklist and then going, okay, right, what do I need to get that person to move better, to eat better, to sit better?
Hello, Kevin. I'm so pleased that you're joining me on the show today. It took a while to get us here. You are, in fact, the first male guest, and it's mostly a women's show, but I thought we'd make a little exception because you focused quite a lot on female health. But maybe before we go there, why don't you just give a quick introduction of, who you are and what you're focusing on at the moment?
And yes, Kevin Powell, I'm a physiotherapist. I started my journey as trying to be a footballer until the age of 19 and had lots of injuries, tried to work them out, and it just didn't happen for me. It was a really difficult period of my life and trying to sort that out. And then what happened, I went into the fitness industry. So I became a personal trainer, fitness instructor, and worked there for several years. And it was really nice helping people to reach their goals. And then it just wasn't ticking all the boxes. And I kind of wanted to know more about how the body works and how to put it together and how I can be more of a service to people. So I studied part-time, meanwhile working for 4 years, and then gradually got my degree, discovered that I was dyslexic. But looking back now, it was really good learning and spend time in the hospital ward, seeing sick people and try to help them.
So that was probably some of the motivation. So you did the degree, you started as a physiotherapist in the industry, but I think that's not where the story ends. There's some more to it.
Yes. So then I went to physiotherapy, qualified, and then went straight into sports. So I spent over 12, 13 years in sports. It was too much traveling and I wasn't spending enough time with the family. And then I went into working as a physiotherapist in the clinic. And that's when I kind of saw a mixture of people, and I stopped seeing the sporting population and just seeing the general public. And so a lot of my clients came in were female, and they were coming with a hip pain. And then I'm like, oh, there's something else coming on here. Oh, and I just developed this interest in women's health. Seeing women struggling to get in front or in front of their fitness issues, women will come to me for other physical things, like they've got headache, but they will just talk about their neck pain and don't see the link between their neck and their head. So that's what I was able to kind of put those two together and go, actually, yes, you've come in with a neck issue. You can't turn your neck left and right, but you also got headache. Is there a link there? And then we'll just slowly start working through that.
So what are the most, I'm curious. So what are the most common issues? Because you did say that's kind of the inspiration from behind the work that you do is a little bit around connecting and looking at the whole body rather than just one little bit in isolation. But what are some of the most common problems that people would come to you? Maybe let's start with women. And then also it'll be interesting if you can contrast this with back when you were working with football players. I'm sure that was a very different mentality there.
Yeah. So the first example, so I'll have a client will come in with a back problem. And they'll tell me that the history about their back issues, it doesn't seem that it's something which is driven by the bone or something which is driven by the muscle. and it definitely doesn't seem like it's a strength issue. And then when we deep dive into it and I start to ask questions about what's happened in the past, is there anything happened with your stomach? Is there anything going on with your periods? And then we go, yeah, I've always had stomach issues, or I've been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. And then you start to think that for all your blood flow is literally just going to stay in the stomach. It's not going to go into the muscles efficiently. It's just going to stay there because it's inflamed, it's angry. And that's when I start going, okay, right, we need to get on top of the type of food you eat. And it's just general education. I think most people know what they can eat. Because if they eat something bad, they feel bad. It's not the right thing for their
Yeah,
body,
but
so
you'd
they
be
can't know.
yeah, but you'd be surprised by how many people still do that and just ignore it
It's
and
hard.
say, "Well, yeah, but that's how it is, and that's just
Yeah,
life." And
yeah.
what
That,
can you do?
yeah, and that's the thing is taking ownership of that and saying, look, if you really struggling with opening your bowels, you have to solve that out first because that is so important to give you the right nutrients. You need that to be functioning well so you can then do the exercises. And there's so many clients have just been told it's just stretch it, just strengthen it, just, just rest it. But it's more to it than that.
Yeah, so does that mean that you often work with other specialists? So let's say you see somebody, you find out that, you have a suspicion that maybe there's an inflammation in the gut or something going on there with the hormones. So would you then continue to see that person or recommend that they go and see somebody specifically about sorting out that issue? Someone, let's say, it goes a medical practitioner.
Yes. And that's what I always say to my clients is that it's just you're coming to see me, and it's like we need a team around you, and we need to get you in front of the right people. And it's a process of elimination. So you come in, and I don't think it's back pain issue. It's not a musculoskeletal structural issue. That's not how it seems to me. So now you come in, we need to look at your gut. We need to know, is there infection going into your gut? Is everything functioning well into your gut? So we'll send them off to get some bloods done. And then all this information then comes back to us, and then we decide which way we need to go. What do we need to do? I use a lot of the functional doctors where they look at you globally and holistically and not just going, right, you need
Yeah.
this medication. And I think that's a far better way for me and the way I see the human body and the way I work. It's not for everybody, but for me, the way I live my life, the way I see health and personal fitness, that's what I believe in. And we just navigate it. And these things take time, but is controlling the patient's expectation because, oh, I still want to run. I still want to do CrossFit. Oh, I've got a marathon booked in. Oh, I've got a holiday. Oh, I've got a work event. And it's controlling all these variables. We all need to work. We all need to pay our bills. We all need to look after our family. I 100% get that. But when you're in crisis, all these things have to fall in line. Nothing can be too much, nothing can be too little. Everything has to fall in line. And just bits by bit, we'll work through it and navigate it.
And this is exactly why I wanted you on the show, because this is part of what we do now with this series. We talk a lot about women and their careers and growing and doing that in a healthy, fulfilled way. And I think a big part of that is that it is connected with your overall well-being, because you can't be good at your job if you're not feeling good about yourself. That's number one. And then all these factors come together. So with these episodes, we're trying to show and give an alternative viewpoint, or maybe talk a little bit about all these tools in the toolbox, the different people that are there that can help you. But I did want to ask you, what are the some of the disciplines that you specifically focus on? Because you've done quite a few, as you said, different things and degrees, and you've got a varied experience. What are the disciplines that you combine in your work?
You know what is so interesting? Like what I've discovered about myself is I love learning. I love deep diving into things. And it's amazing. So I've done my physiotherapy degree, 17 years qualified now, and I've gone into looking at how organs work, so visceral osteopathy. A guy, Jean-Pierre Burrell. So I've gone to look at his work. I've gone on courses to look at that. And then I've stepped away from that. Then I've gone on courses by the Upland Institute to look at how cranial bones work and how they move with migraines and headaches. And I've gone off on acupuncture courses and I've gone to look at just how the feet affects everything. And it's amazing what I've come back to, 17 years later. It's not about the special techniques. It's being open-minded and viewing the body holistically. And we say holistically a lot, but what does it mean? It's having a checklist of a way of looking at the body and going, right, that head should be sitting in that position, but it's not. It's sitting more to the right. What does that mean for their gut? What does that mean for their knee? What does it mean for their spine? And it's going through a checklist and then going, okay, right, what do I need to get that person to move better, to eat better, to sit better? And I think that's quite beautiful.
Yeah, it's when just as you were speaking, I was thinking about some of my teachers as well in different disciplines, and it's all about constantly having to learn. And I think that the people that go the furthest in their lives and professions as a whole are the ones who continuously learn, but they learn not for the sake of having degrees. I think it's something else. It's more just expanding, I suppose, the knowledge, whatever field it may be in, and just working on your personal self-development, because I suppose there is that element in what you're doing. It's not just so that you can add another degree on your website and put it on your CV.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing for me is understanding and not just learning techniques. Well, I've read books of the founder of osteopathy, Andrew Taylor Still, and he didn't teach techniques. He taught a way of thinking, a way of viewing the world and experiencing your hand. Jean-Pierre Barrel said the sommelier who can tell you what region a wine is from and the thickness of the wine and the fruit. We should be able to do the same with our hands when we pull it on someone. We should be able to use the same senses. Why can't we? If we can have the same senses in our mouth, why can't a therapist, a manual therapist, have these senses with their hands? And I thought that was just beautiful.
That's what you're aspiring to do with your work, with your
Yeah,
practice now.
yeah. I think to be able to feel with my hands, be able to link things together, to show people that they're not broken, especially these women I see, you're not broken. Your body's not failing you. It's giving you information. You have this type of pain, you have this reaction to this type of food, rather than just going, oh, it's just the way it is. And I think we are so good at that. It's, oh, just the way it is. I've got period pains. It's just the way it is. My mum was like that. My sisters are like that. Oh, I've got migraines. Yeah, everybody had migraines. But the question is, but why? Why has it got to be the way it is?
Yeah,
Shall
and
we look into that?
you just end up treating the symptoms because that's what you're told. And you're like, oh, take a pill and it will go away. And if it comes back tough, but you're not really looking for what's causing it, which I think is what we're trying to challenge here.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. It's like, okay, you go, and a perfect example, I had a client who's got horrific migraines from when she was young, and she's in her 30s now, I've got a kid. And then when you deep dive in it, they've had head traumas, from when they're 8 years old. And then you're like, surely that's going to put strain on the muscles in your neck, the blood vessels, everything, her anxiety levels. And then you just slowly, slowly start, okay, maybe I can educate that head now to go a bit more to the left or a bit more rotate. And then you just slowly start putting these sequences in. And then things just slowly start to resolve. And they're not on medication now. But that takes commitment. That takes, everybody wants to get there straight away, but nothing is linear.
And I like the non-linearity that you mentioned, because I started the show with the idea, well, careers are not linear, and then we started to look at what other, a bit like you, disciplines, and what feeds into you having a successful career and feeling good about it. So that's kind of how we ended up here. And I would agree completely that I think part of the challenge, and which is why we're glad to have people like you looking at the body holistically, is that yes, you go and see someone and the plan is to get you from A to B, and that's what everyone gets regardless of their personal circumstances. And I think that's just not working for many people anymore.
No, and I think people, and that's why my business here now has been all from word of mouth, and there's something quite nice about that. That I'm now getting people who want to look at their self in this way, and also, that their body's not failing them, that their body's trying to tell them something. But that's very hard when you're working 14, 15 hours to listen to that, and you're staring at a computer.
Yes, don't even get me started on the computers, but that's just the modern disease, is it? When it's not a computer, it's a screen, it's iPhone, tablet, whatever it could be.
Yeah, and I think that is it. We want instant. I want a charger. I want it now. So I go on Amazon and I've got it, and it's just everything is quick. And then when they come to me, it's like, right, why is this pain not gone? I thought you were a therapist. Why is this pain still here? And you have to explain to them that,
It's only
look,
been half an hour.
You've had this for 10 years.
Well,
You know?
yes, and there's something about reversing, right? If you've been unhealthy and put on, let's say, weight for 10 years, it's not going to take one day to lose that, is it? You have to be realistic about some of those things. So,
No, but what it is, you go on social media, there's someone going, yeah, they had back pain for 10 years and I did one maneuver and that's it. They're fine. But there's so many of that. There's so many of that out there, masses. They need loads of people. So it's just reinforcing that. And then your camera's going, how many sessions is that going to take? I don't know yet. Let's work through it and let's go through this process. It's
that's
fascinating.
that instant gratification, I guess that sells. But it's funny because for anyone who's worked in the financial services industry, you know how heavily regulated it is now because of mis-selling things. So I almost feel like that should happen at some point with a lot of these, you know, magic pills and promises of changing body conditions overnight, because that's just not realistic. And, you know, and the problem is that people fall for it, and I don't think it's even their fault. And I think what's even worse is that then you get even more discouraged, and as you say, you start to feel and think that your body is failing you, which makes you even more depressed, rather than realizing no, it's not. It's just that what I was promised was basically a lie.
Yeah, but you know what? Because that took me a long time to get that. I used to work in a clinic where half an hour sessions. So I'd see 20 patients back to back, average 15 in a 10-hour day. And I'd see about 190 clients a month.
How much time would you spend with each of those
Half
in
an
an
hour.
individual? So half an hour, 30 minutes in and out, and you have to fix them in that 30 minutes.
That's it. And they look at you and go, why is my neck still hurting? Why is it still hurting? And I just thought I wasn't good enough. And I think that's where it started. I looked at this and it was the same people coming back. Those people would have 200 osteopath, chiropractic, physio session, and then they'll end up having an injection. And once the injection doesn't work, then they end up having surgery. And then a lot of these people didn't need any of those interventions. They just needed to look at what they're doing in their working environment, look what they're doing in their personal life, and get everything again back into alignment. And also just to see what they need to do to get themselves out of it, and that it's going to take a process. But you know, that half an hour, that dopamine rush, and everybody is like that. And then, right, no, you're not a good therapist. I'm going to go see someone else. So I had to ask those questions of myself. Am I a really bad therapist? And when I realized, actually, I'm actually quite good at this. And then I started to realize it's actually people's expectation was making me feel like this. But I was stubborn enough to go, no, I'm gonna be good at this. I want to keep going, and I'm going to make sure people can see in half an hour what they need to do and why they're not getting better. And that stubbornness, that determination, that discipline, in the end was like, wow, this stuff is really amazing. And this is the stuff I didn't get in sports. You haven't got the time. That pressure pot environment is instant. A mission of one day in a sporting environment is like missing 2 weeks.
Oh, you're
That's what
talking
it
about
feels like.
the football
Yeah.
players where someone let's just give that background to our listeners. So let's say you still worked in football in
Yeah.
sports with different clubs, and
Yeah.
a football player comes to you and say, oh, during a game I got injured. Let's say my foot's not working, or my knee, or whatever it may be. And
Yeah.
what does that mean? And where does the pressure come from for you and for them?
Yeah, the pressure comes from that player doesn't want to lose his position. He doesn't want to miss 3, 4 days from training because that now means that he has to fight again for his position. So he's like, what's the quickest way? We got a game on Sunday. Let's have an injection. If the injection doesn't work, let's put another one in. If that doesn't work, let's put another one. And then it keeps going on in that cycle until that person gets back. But in my experience, they never get back well. There's always something else happening. They're all from that foot. It might
It's
be a
not
ham.
fully resolved in a way.
Never. And they're so high in athlete, and their body's just great. The body's just great at adapting. And that ankle problem now, 6 weeks down the line, everybody's forgotten about that ankle because it's such a pressure pot environment. Now he's got a knee problem or a groin problem. Now everybody's looking at that problem when actually it's the foot which is the problem. But that's 6 weeks down the line.
It
That
hasn't
can't
gone away. It's still there. It's
it's
just
still
hasn't
there.
fully been resolved. Yeah.
Exactly. And it just pulled on my heartstring because these were young boys, vulnerable boys trying to live out their passion. And I was one of them. You know,
So you could relate.
I could so relate to it. And it's so hard because I get injured. My first operation was on my knee at 15 years old. I had probably a month of not playing and not back in. And how that is still playing out at 42 now. how that is still playing out in body and affecting me,
Yeah. Well, I
which
think
is
that,
which is
that does
incredible.
say something about the pressure that professional athletes are under, and I suppose they will have to live with some of those interests for the rest of their lives, which is the price you pay for playing professional sport. But I want to go back to most of my listeners who probably are
So
not professional. No, I think that's really interesting because I think there's lots of parallels that could be drawn. You know, whether you work as a athlete at a high level or maybe you're at a very high level in your career, which is completely different, that pressure and that desire to resolve things quickly, adds up. And I think it's a culture that sort of permeates. So it's not just football or sports. I think
yeah,
that's true of probably most of your clients, regardless of whether or not they
and you're right there because you know what they do. They compare themselves because football, everybody talks about it. So well, he had an ankle sprain. He got back in 2 weeks, and you're like, but why is my one Kevin taking 8 weeks?
Yeah. So, what are the most common problems or things that women come to you with? Is it, you mentioned migraines, period pain, maybe issues after giving birth and going through that journey? And you did mention that you became a father, so your own partner went through that journey herself.
Yes, yeah. It's just amazing seeing how she goes through and seeing that the Kegel exercises, the yoga, the Pilates, it just didn't fit for her, didn't work for her. And it's like, right, is that it now? Do I just have to accept it? I was like, no, there's other bits we can do. Then we start exploring these other bits of how she can engage her lower abdominal muscles, her glutes or her adductors. There's other things you can do when you look at that person as an individual and exploring that. And that's why it's different for everybody. And that's what people need to hold on to. Your listeners listening now, if you've got bladder issues, you can't open your bowels, you're not failing. It's just that you haven't found the right thing. And it's all about, when my clients come in, they come in pre and postpartum. So they've had their kid, they've had cesareans. And it's like, Kevin, I'm doing the Kegel exercises, I'm doing the yoga, I'm doing the Pilates, but something still doesn't feel right. I still got this pout. And I'm like, okay, let's look into that. What type of thing are you doing? And it's the classic, I'm doing lots and lots of core, Kevin. I'm doing plank exercises. I'm doing sit-ups. I'm really strong here, and you just go, okay, that's not what you need. And then when you start looking at their scar's really thick and is really keloid, it looks angry. And this is months, sometimes even years after their pregnancy, that, the scar doesn't look healthy. It doesn't look
So
right.
how
And then,
can so how can someone like you help them with that? Because you think that normally that means going back to the more traditional medicine and GP or whatever it may be.
yeah, so what I do now is I look at them, I always say structurally, and I go, right, what is happening? Are you high on one side, low on one side? We look at the front, are they more rotated one way or to the other? And then we look at them in a side view, are you more going forward, or are you more back? Because then that tells us how they're holding themselves. And then it's understanding where they are and educate them to see the opposite side of the coin. We educate them to turn a bit more to the right and then explore and see what happens. What does that mean for the tissue? Organs don't just stay still. They have to move because of how they're connected to the rest of the body. But it's definitely not that you need to be more stretchy. It's definitely not that you need to be stronger. They just need to listen,
Yes,
you
and
know?
I think that listening is comes up a lot because I think where we often get challenges is first of all getting people to actually admit that there is a problem and then actually getting them to commit that they are part of the solution. Because I think so much, often what happens in physiotherapy and other specialists is you go there, you pay someone, and you expect them to fix your problems, a bit like a external consultant might do for a business, but actually as the consultant would know themselves, it doesn't happen without buy-in on the inside. And it's the same way with you. I think we've been trying to move away from that model where the patient is not involved in their own journey.
Yeah. And I think that is spot on. And it's something I had to battle with. If you can't see it, you can't do it. You're not aware of it. And even with myself, there's certain things I couldn't see in myself. So someone had to shine a light and go, actually, you're living over here and you're not experiencing this. And look, let's show you what it's like to get over here. But that person has to be able to willing and to be open-minded to see, wow, I can't see over there. Let's go and explore it. Let's go and explore it together. And then once they start exploring, they start seeing things, they start being aware. And I always think when you're tidying up yourself, there's other bits in your life you also need to tidy up. it's not just a knee, it's not just an ankle, it's not just a bladder. There's other things in your life which you need to pay attention to. And once you start paying attention to these things which are in front of you and you start to see it, you start to see other things. And then it's just this spiral. And that is just beautiful, but it takes time.
Yeah,
And it's
it's
just
not overnight. Nothing happens overnight. And I think that's why I think I really liked your message, because it was one of, you're not selling magic pills to anyone, and you're not telling anyone that it's a very straightforward one night transition journey. And I was sitting there wondering how much of your job actually is not just, using your hands, but part of it is probably being a psychologist and just understanding people. I wonder how many of your clients at the end of, finishing, let's say, a course of therapy with you actually ended up changing their jobs and their careers. Does that happen a lot?
it's incredible. It's incredible. I had one client who came in here, amazing woman. She couldn't walk, but she came here in the winter. It's icy outside with her two crutches, and she came into my studio. And she came in with back pain, and I said to her, "This has got nothing to do with your back. This is all the way how this big ankle injury you had when you were 16 is just giving up on you, and we're going to educate this ankle and get you putting weight through this ankle." And we started to work through as the weeks and months goes on. And she said to me, "I've just realized that my cat is not well, Kevin. So I can slowly see the mobility in the cat was decreasing. And it's not something I would see before, but I can now see my mobility in myself is actually improving. And now I can see that my actual mobility in the cat was declining." But she wasn't aware of it. We're all like that. Myself, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I'm at an okay level, but in order to get better, I had to look at myself, not train more. I had to look at myself and say, "Oh my God, my knee doesn't move the way it needs to do. My hip doesn't move the way it needs to be. Oh my God, I need help with this." Because we're so good at normalizing things, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah. And I had the similar experience when I started doing ballet, and she was saying, "That's not how your feet should be. It should be like this." And I was like, "But I can't." She was like, "What does it mean you can't? Everyone can." I was like, "I can't. You don't understand." And it was causing me immense like cramping in my foot and my toes. And yeah, that's when I started to realize, okay, there's something to work with here. It's not, the question is not spending more hours in front of I mean, surely that helps, but there's a point at which you take ownership and responsibility and dig a bit deeper.
Yeah, it was a massive learning curve for me and helped me with my practice. And I work with someone every 8 weeks because I can't do what I cannot see, and everybody needs someone and something. But it's finding out what is it you need. And I think that's the skill set of the health professional world, rather than just going, "Oh, here's a tablet." It's like, why do you need that tablet? What is that tablet going to do for you? And it might be I cannot sleep at night because I've got this raging neck issue, and I might have to reach for it because I need to function. But yes, that's able to take you so far. You need to find out the why and ask your medical professional, "Why are you giving me that tablet? What else do I need to look at?"
Yeah. And because you said you also go and see somebody. I mean, is that like a mentor? Is that someone who just checks you? How does, because I think that's another thing we talk a lot on the show. It's just about the importance of having those people to help guide you, even when you think you're pretty good at what you do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. He is a mentor, and some of the sessions he comes and he doesn't. We just speak, and then the last 10 minutes is like, "Oh yeah, let's progress you onto this and this." But a lot of it is that you need to discover yourself, and that's what my mentor helps me. He doesn't give me the answers. He just puts something out there, and I'm going, why did he say that? And then I go and I explore. I reach for a book, or is there something I just need to stick with and explore by myself? I think everybody needs someone to help them navigate this world and navigate themselves. Because in order for me to help others, I need to know myself. And to put it into context, I haven't done any jiu-jitsu since August. I had to know that, oh my God, my knee, my hip, they're not working well. So how are you going to explain to someone else that their knee's not going to work? You have no, you don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about in a way. Yeah, yeah.
You don't know. It's hypocritical, and that's why I said to my wife, I'd be a hypocrite to my profession and to my clients if I go back to jiu-jitsu now without tidying up all these bits in me. And it's crazy. I'll get these eureka moments, and I'm like, oh, I could go back. And I'm like, no, I need to work
Not
on this.
yet. There's a lot more work to be done.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And people go to, when are you going to go back? I don't know. I'm just enjoying discovering myself. It's just been
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, and this is what I always like to talk about. And when we started with the show, the idea was to show how you can navigate, make changes in your career, and reinvent yourself. And I think it always goes back to that uncomfortable admission that at some point, who you used to be at 19 or 25 or 30 is not who you are anymore. And some people are lucky, and maybe what worked for them at 19 still works, but there's probably very few that I know of. And yes, and that's why we started talking about how you actually get to a point where you understand better who you are now, and maybe getting over the fear of letting go of these old habits or whatever it may be that's holding you back. And the fear, I suppose, the fear of missing out on something.
Yes.
I'm sure that you must have had, and that's, I know we're coming close to the end of the show, but the final question I wanted to ask you was how you actually decided to let go of some of, let's say, the comfort of working for a job where somebody else was responsible, and actually setting up your own practice, because that must not have been easy.
Yes. It was really hard. I just followed my passion. I love being a physiotherapist. I love learning. I love helping others. And I just followed my passion. And I got to a point where COVID happened and everything moved online. And I just said to my wife, I can't go back to seeing 20 patients a day. I just don't want to do that. It's not for me. I just don't. It was exhausting. It was exhausting because I was in a group where a lot of them didn't know what they needed to do to get better, if that makes sense. And I decided, look, that's enough. I'm going to start phasing myself out and I'm going to get a spot in this area. And I wanted a space which is not clinical, that it's a space where people could come and they feel, yeah, I'm going to get looked after here. It's very
Well,
warm.
that's actually for our listeners. If they check out the videos, that's where you are now, and it doesn't look like a hospital. That's for sure. There's a lot of personality in there.
Yeah, and I just didn't want that. So me and my wife decorated, and she painted because I can't paint, and she done a really good job. But I just followed my passion. I have no interest in being a multimillionaire. I just need enough to look after my family and to keep a roof over my head, and that's all I need. My passion is helping others, serving others, and learning. The better I can get, the better outcome with my clients. And now it's turned into a business, which is really nice.
I like the way you explain it, because it sounds a lot like the journey that you set out on with your patients as well. When you say, look, it's not going to happen immediately, but doesn't mean you have to. You just have to start somewhere, and maybe you don't have all the answers, and there's lots of things to explore. But as long as you keep an open mind on the goal, you'll get there.
Exactly, and it's hard. It's not like I don't have sleepless nights. I do, but they're enjoyable in certain way, because I know these struggles are not going to be there forever. Because the word I use now, I'm always pivoting. I read this book, Viktor E. Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning, and I think that's it. You're just constantly searching. And the more I know about myself, the more I know myself, the better father I can be, the better husband I can be. And I think that is what I'm following.
Yeah, and I think that's very clear from the moment that somebody actually sets foot in your studio, that your main drive in your life is to help others, which is very rare today. So that's why I think this topic actually resonates very well with our listeners, because as women, I would argue that we were built to be caring and looking after others. That's biology. And, obviously there are many options out there now, and everyone finds their own take on it. But I think that kind of looking after others and helping is why we're doing this. So thank you very much for joining the show. It was a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for having me.
This episode is very special to me, not just because it's our special Christmas bonus edition. It is special because meeting Kevin made me realize that while I want this show to be a platform for women, I also want it to be a source of inspiration and almost like a little black book that's full of resources, insights, and tips from people who can help you with so many of the pressures that we have to deal with today. And when it comes to health and well-being, I really couldn't find anyone who could match Kevin's passion and enthusiasm. He really, to me, is the definition of someone loving his profession. And I found that conversation inspiring on so many levels, starting with his story, which reminded me that sometimes the end of one dream, or in his case, the dream to be a professional football player, was just the catalyst that he needed in order to find his true passion, which was all about helping and healing people. And if it sounds familiar, then you are on the right track. And the other thing that I feel really passionate about is always advocating and reminding ourselves that our bodies are not failing us. But we are failing ourselves, and we are actually the ones failing our bodies more often than not by not listening to them, ignoring them, and just waiting for far too long to address what's under the hood. I feel like we're just so obsessed with piling on medicines, plasters, crutches, just anything, but trying to understand what's actually going on and connecting the dots. And I get really passionate about this because I see it day in and day out, whether I go to the gym, whether I go to the office, when I just overhear people talking about things that they're dealing with. And it matters to me because I know, and I've experienced it firsthand, that trauma doesn't go away on its own, not in the physical world and certainly not in the emotional one. But I wish you good luck if you try to separate the two, because as we've just discovered with Kevin, they are connected. And then finally, the thing that I really loved about this episode was that it's also a very inspiring story about starting a business, which is just as scary for men as it is for women. And we're going through the same leap of faith journey. But the reality is that once you offload the expectations, and I admit I'm guilty of that myself all the time, and once you just focus on the core of what it is that really made you set out on this journey in the first place, well, that's when things start to fall into place. And the beauty of all of these is that the proof is actually in the pudding, because I recorded this episode with Kevin back in the summer. And less than half a year later, I met him again, and I found out with great satisfaction that his business has actually expanded exponentially since then. And I asked him to share the secret. So what is the secret, you're asking? Well, head to my Instagram page where Kevin shares some of the latest on what's been happening with his clinic. So next time we go back to our Women in the Boardroom series, we're going to dive deeper into that topic and particularly how it relates to women in the boardroom. We're starting with my next guest, Neka Oji, who's an experienced consultant in the wealth management space, but she's even better known as a powerful voice on the topic of leadership development, personal growth, and diversity and inclusion. To find out how she built her personal brand and supportive community around her, which helped her skyrocket her career to new levels, make sure you tune in exactly 2 weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Sound of Breaking Glass. I truly appreciate you being here with me. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss on any new episodes. They drop every 2 weeks. I'd also love for you to join me over on Instagram or LinkedIn, where I share more behind-the-scenes moments, guest insights, and extra resources just for our amazing Breakers community. Let's keep the conversation going, and I can't wait to connect with you there. Until next time, take care and keep breaking through.